At a high-profile royal event, Princess Anne stunned the monarchy by confronting Queen Camilla, live and in full view of the royal family. Her sharp, deliberate words cut through the ceremony, leaving Camilla speechless and the entire palace frozen. What Anne said wasn't just bold. It was a direct challenge to power. The tense moment unfolds. No one saw it coming. Not like this. Not in front of cameras, not at a state ceremony, and definitely not from the usually composed Princess Anne. It happened at the Order of the Garter service, held on the sunlit grounds of Windsor Castle. A royal event steeped in tradition, attended by foreign dignitaries, military leaders, and nearly every senior member of the royal family. Everything was going according to plan, until Anne made her move. There had been whispers all morning. Anne and Camilla were seen exchanging cold glances as they waited for the formal procession to begin. A quiet comment from Camilla, a visible shift in Anne's expression. The tension was palpable, even before the cameras rolled. But no one expected confrontation. Not Anne, not in public. Then, just moments before the service started, Anne broke away from her position. With a sharp, almost military stride, she walked directly toward Queen Camilla, who had just taken her seat beside Charles, wearing full regalia. Witnesses say Anne didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "That's not your place," she reportedly said, loud enough for nearby aides and at least one open mic to catch it. The air changed instantly. Camilla froze. Her smile faltered. For a full 5 seconds, she said nothing. Her posture stiffened, and she slowly turned to face Anne, clearly caught off guard. The surrounding royals went dead silent. Even the BBC broadcast quickly cut to a wide shot of the crowd, avoiding a close-up. But the damage was already done. One onlooker described it as the most awkward silence I've ever heard at a royal event. Whispers rippled through the seated guests. Even the guards looked unsure whether to move or stand down. Cameras were lowered. Aides stepped in, but Anne didn't back off. Her face was composed, but her eyes were blazing. Camilla, known for her polished calm, looked momentarily rattled. She didn't expect to be challenged. "Not like that. Not in front of everyone," said one palace staffer later. You could feel the oxygen leave the room. This wasn't just a personal jab. It was a public warning. And for the first time in a long time, someone within the firm had called out the Queen, on her throne, at her own event. But what exactly did Anne say next that made it impossible for Camilla to brush off? Anne's opening blow. The moment was raw, but it was Anne's next line that truly shook the palace. "You're standing where Mother would never have allowed you." 7 words. That's all it took. It wasn't just a challenge to Camilla's role, it was a knife to the heart of royal memory. A reference to Queen Elizabeth II, spoken in the present tense in front of the crowd, and with full knowledge of what it meant. Anne wasn't just speaking for herself, she was speaking for tradition, for protocol, for those who believe Camilla's rise has gone too far, too fast, and without enough respect for the old order. The line targeted Camilla's positioning, seated beside the king at a symbolic moment usually reserved for spouses with undisputed royal bloodlines. To Anne, that seat wasn't just furniture, it was legacy. Camilla tried to respond, reportedly leaning in slightly and saying, "I think the king would disagree." Her voice was low, composed, but her hand was shaking. Anne didn't flinch. "Then maybe someone needs to remind him who built this house," she snapped. The surrounding aides tensed. One tried to interrupt, whispering, "Ma'am," to Anne, but she brushed them off. The message was clear. This wasn't about feelings. It was about structure. Insiders say that what Anne was doing wasn't emotional outburst. It was a coded warning that Camilla's increasing visibility, control over certain household decisions, and growing influence with Charles had begun to cross invisible lines. And Anne had finally had enough. Camilla, visibly flustered, tried to recover. She sat back, adjusted her gloves, and said nothing more. But it was too late. The ripple had already begun. You could see staff exchanging looks, one eyewitness told the Telegraph. Everyone knew something real had just happened. Not rehearsed, not staged, real. And just like that, the moment ended. But the impact would echo through every corridor of the palace. Because this clash didn't come out of nowhere. The roots go deep into years of rivalry, unspoken tension, and a long, unhealed fracture in the royal family's foundation. The history behind the clash. To understand why Princess Anne confronted Queen Camilla so boldly and so publicly, you have to rewind through 2 decades of quiet resentment, buried traditions, and a royal house still wrestling with its own ghosts. This wasn't their first moment of tension, not even close. From the very beginning, Anne and Camilla have had a fraught relationship. While the public saw a carefully managed transition from mistress to queen consort, behind the scenes, Anne never forgot how that journey began. She watched as Camilla, once the woman Princess Diana called the third person in her marriage, slowly rose through the ranks. Anne, a stickler for protocol, found herself increasingly at odds with Camilla's relaxed approach to royal formality. And more than once, those tensions slipped into public view. In 2015, royal watchers noted how Anne refused to curtsy to Camilla at a private Windsor gathering, despite being advised to. In 2019, at Trooping the Colour, the pair exchanged a frosty glance on the Buckingham Palace balcony that set social media on fire. Anne has always followed the rules. Every title, every step, every order of precedence matters to her, said one palace historian. Camilla? She plays by her own rules. And that's the core of it. Anne represents royal tradition, while Camilla represents royal reinvention. Anne earned her position. She never courted public sympathy. She served. She worked. Over 20,000 royal engagements and decades of military patronage. She never expected the throne, but she always protected the institution. Camilla's rise, by contrast, was gradual but strategic. She began with low-profile charity work, softened her public image, and, with Charles's support, slowly climbed the ranks. Her title changed. Her wardrobe changed. And by 2023, she was being styled as Queen Camilla, not just the king's wife. To Anne, that change was more than cosmetic. It was a rewrite of royal order. And with every shift in power, Anne saw not just Camilla gaining ground, but the Queen Mother, Princess Diana, and even Queen Elizabeth II being quietly written out of the story. She thinks Camilla's ascent has come at the expense of the women who came before, one former courtier said. This confrontation wasn't personal, it was historic. A clash of 2 legacies, one earned, one granted. And nowhere was that more clear than in the symbolic battlefield where the confrontation took place. Protocol. The power play, symbolism and protocol. When Princess Anne stopped Camilla mid-procession and told her, "That's not your place," she wasn't just making a scene. She was launching a direct assault on power, status, and structure. Because in the royal world, protocol is power. Every royal event, From where you sit, to when you enter, to who stands beside whom, tells a story. And in this story, Camilla's presence beside the king at the Order of the Garter wasn't just ceremonial. It was symbolic control. According to long-held tradition, the seat beside the monarch at this event is reserved for the consort or heir, depending on availability. In Queen Elizabeth's time, it was Prince Philip. On rare occasions, Anne herself would stand in. But now, Camilla claims that spot every time. And that's exactly what Anne challenged. Observers say Anne's arrival was deliberately timed. She waited until Camilla had seated herself, until the cameras were rolling and the titles had been announced, before walking up and making her move. Protocol isn't just about order. It's about message, said a royal insider. Anne sent hers, and everyone heard it loud and clear. Camilla's power, while soft, is increasing. Since Charles ascended in September 2022, she's taken on new roles, begun to oversee select patronages, and holds more sway over household staff than many expected. And yet, Anne sees her as a guest in a legacy that was never hers to shape. To Anne, every public gesture matters. She's known for correcting aides if they get a title wrong, or rearranging seating if hierarchy is broken. Her loyalty lies not with personalities, but with institutional structure. That's why this moment mattered. Camilla's challenge is unique. She's the wife of the king, but not from the same royal cloth. And while the public has softened to her, particularly since Queen Elizabeth gave her blessing in 2022, not everyone inside the family has. Anne believes there are lines Camilla shouldn't cross, and that seat beside Charles was one of them, said a source familiar with royal protocol. This wasn't a meltdown. It was a strategic reminder of hierarchy, a subtle, calculated correction made very, very public. And as Camilla tried to defend her position, what she said only deepened the silence. Camilla's attempted defense. Queen Camilla is known for staying composed, always smiling, always poised. But in that moment, face to face with Princess Anne, under the eyes of the press, tradition, and the ghost of the late queen herself, she slipped. After Anne's chilling words, "You're standing where Mother would never have allowed you," Camilla sat back. Still, for a full breath, she didn't move. Then, trying to regain her footing, she leaned in, lowered her voice, and replied, "I'm here at the king's request." That should be enough. It was a calm reply. But her tone? Thin, defensive, controlled. Not the calm strength she's projected in recent months. This was a woman cornered, trying to protect her place. She adjusted her gloves, shifted her posture, forced a smile. But those nearby noticed her hands trembling slightly as she clutched the program. Anne didn't speak again. She didn't need to. Her silence was louder than anything Camilla could have said. For the next few minutes, no one moved. Aides held their breath. The cameras stayed wide, avoiding close shots of the Queen. One microphone near the procession was quietly cut off. You could practically feel the signal go out. Contain this, now. Observers say Camilla tried to reclaim the moment, nodding politely to guests, exchanging a few words with Prince Edward, and pretending nothing had happened. But the energy had shifted. "She was rattled," said a source in the royal press pool. That cool, collected persona slipped, and it was obvious. What she didn't do was fight back. There was no sharp retort, no escalation. She knew she couldn't win a public protocol standoff with Princess Anne, who outranks her in both experience and institutional respect. Still, Camilla made one subtle move. As she stood to leave the chapel, she stepped forward first. Before Anne. It was a quiet counter, a signal to those watching closely. She wasn't stepping back. Not yet. But as the chapel emptied and the royal cars pulled away, the real battle moved behind palace walls, and the shockwave hit hard. The shockwave in the palace. By the time the confrontation hit the press, the palace was already in crisis mode. Within an hour, communications aides were seen holding emergency meetings at Clarence House. Phones buzzed, press officers were rerouted, and one royal staffer was reportedly overheard saying, "We've got a situation." There was no official statement from Buckingham Palace that day. No denial, no clarification, just silence. But inside, tensions exploded. Staff loyal to Anne were quietly smug. Those closer to Camilla were furious. Several insiders said the event sparked a full internal review of seating arrangements, procession orders, and public duties for future engagements. "It's no longer just about tradition," said one insider. "It's about power and who really holds it." Leaks began immediately. Within 12 hours, snippets of the confrontation reached 3 major papers, all slightly different, but matching in tone. Anne had stood up to Camilla, and Camilla had flinched. By the next morning, the Daily Mail ran the headline, "Standoff at Windsor. Anne's icy words leave Camilla speechless." Social media exploded. Twitter, TikTok, Reddit. Everyone was posting slowed-down footage, lip-reading attempts, and speculative breakdowns of the drama. One viral post read, "Princess Anne did what the Queen never could. Call Camilla out in public." Meanwhile, palace aides scrambled to prevent more leaks. Staff were reportedly reminded of confidentiality clauses, and several junior members were told to hand over phones and access badges temporarily. Still, the damage had already begun to spread. "You can't put the lid back on this," said a royal biographer. "When senior royals clash in public, people don't forget." But the worst may have been the internal fallout. Sources say that following the event, Camilla and Anne didn't speak at all during the post-ceremony reception. Prince William was seen staying close to Anne, while Queen Camilla appeared in a separate conversation circle, visibly isolated. One senior staffer summed it up bluntly. "It wasn't just a bad day. This reopened old wounds, and no one's pretending otherwise." But while the palace scrambled to contain the narrative, the public had already chosen sides, and what happened next lit up every screen in Britain. Public and social media reaction. If the palace hoped to keep the confrontation quiet, social media had other plans. Within hours, the moment had gone viral. No official footage captured the exact words, but that didn't matter. Royal watchers were already decoding the body language, reading lips, and filling in the blanks. Across Twitter/X, the hashtags Anne v Camilla, Royal Showdown, and Not Your Place surged. Millions of users shared theories, screenshots, and slowed-down clips of Anne approaching Camilla, pausing, and speaking those now infamous words. "Princess Anne just did what everyone else was too afraid to do," one viral post read. Respect. The headlines hit fast and hard. Anne takes a stand. Windsor confrontation stuns royal circle. The Telegraph. Camilla confronted over role, leaves ceremony shaken. Daily Mail. Not Your Place. Anne's sharp words. Echo across UK. The Mirror. Memes exploded. Anne was photoshopped as a medieval knight, a royal enforcer, and even a Game of Thrones queen, all with captions celebrating her no-nonsense energy. But it wasn't just jokes. There was real emotion behind the reaction. The pro-Anne crowd dominated. To many, she represented duty, loyalty, and a fierce defense of Queen Elizabeth II's legacy. Commenters called her the last real royal, unshakable, and the monarchy's spine. Meanwhile, pro-Camilla voices were quieter, but present. They called the moment disrespectful, unnecessary, and personal, not principled. Some accused Anne of stirring drama, just as Camilla had finally earned public respect. Still, the majority leaned Anne's way, and the palace felt it. Royal PR advisors reportedly scrambled to monitor sentiment, updating crisis briefings by the hour. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was a referendum, said royal commentator Jenny Bond. And the public made it clear. They're still not ready to fully embrace Queen Camilla. What Anne did resonated far beyond Windsor. Because to many, this wasn't just royal drama. It was a moment of truth, loyalty, and long overdue reckoning. But Anne wasn't just defending etiquette. She was making a statement, one that shook the very foundations of the crown. What Anne was really calling out. This wasn't about a chair.
It wasn't about a seating plan.
It was about power, legacy, and who gets to write the future of the monarchy. When Princess Anne told Camilla she didn't belong in that seat, she wasn't making a petty jab. She was calling out a quiet shift that's been happening behind palace walls ever since Queen Elizabeth II passed. Over the last year, Camilla's influence has grown fast, and largely without question. She's gained more patronages, more visibility, and more say in Charles's daily affairs. And for some, especially Anne, it feels like a soft coup, a slow, subtle rearranging of roles, power, and perception. Anne has never craved the spotlight, but she's always been a protector of the monarchy's roots, its tradition, structure, and unwritten rules. What Camilla represents is a break from that. A modern monarchy where titles shift based on popularity, where protocol bends for convenience, and where legacy is rebranded. She was calling out more than a breach of protocol, said one insider. She was calling out an erosion of royal values. Anne's pointed use of the word mother in her confrontation wasn't just emotional. It was symbolic. It was a reminder that this institution didn't rise on spin doctors and softened optics. It rose on duty, sacrifice, and order. And right now, Anne sees that slipping. Palace aides say Anne has been increasingly vocal behind the scenes, questioning decisions around Camilla's title, her visibility during state visits, and her input on certain family matters. Until now, she's kept it all behind closed doors. This time, she took it public. Why now? Sources believe it was months of tension boiling over, and perhaps a final warning, not just to Camilla, but to Charles himself. That there are limits, even within a family that prides itself on unity. Anne has watched this institution survive wars, scandals, and abdications, said royal historian Robert Hardman. She's not afraid to be the one who says the thing no one else will. And what she said may have changed everything. Because next, it's Camilla's future that hangs in the balance. Her image, her position, and her path forward, all shaken by one woman's words. What this means for Camilla. For years, Queen Camilla has walked a delicate path, from royal outsider to consort beside the king. But after Princess Anne's pointed public challenge, that image has been visibly shaken. Camilla has always relied on silence and subtlety. Smile, stay composed. Avoid direct confrontation. But this time, she couldn't sidestep it. Anne's words landed in front of the family, the crowd, and the monarchy Camilla's worked to join. Her response, "I'm here at the king's request." That should be enough. Was calm on the surface, but those watching saw the shift. Her posture stiffened. Her voice thinned. She was rattled. Since then, she's probably stepped back from several appearances. Officially, it's due to scheduling. Behind the scenes, it's strategic. Her team is reassessing everything, from optics to tone, knowing her next move must be perfect. This wasn't just personal. It was a public challenge to Camilla's place in the system. Until now, her power came quietly, through Charles, through charm, through caution. Now, that soft power is being tested by someone with history, respect, and public backing. Anne holds what Camilla never will: decades of service, loyalty, and deep respect from staff and the British public. If Anne calls her out, people don't ask why. They ask, what does Anne know? Camilla's usual routines won't work now. Her next appearance will be measured against Anne, her posture, her words, her presence. Inside the palace, the split is growing. Some still support Camilla's softer style. Others quietly agree with Anne. Tradition matters and lines have been crossed. Camilla's crown isn't in danger, but her influence? It's on the edge. If she doesn't reassert control soon, she risks being defined not by her strength, but by her silence. The unanswered questions and next moves. The dust hasn't settled, and inside Buckingham Palace, no one's pretending it has. Since the confrontation, the atmosphere remains tense. Staff are quiet. Conversations are careful. Everyone knows this isn't just about what happened. It's about what's still coming. Princess Anne hasn't commented, and likely never will. She's not one to apologize. Her silence doesn't signal retreat, it signals strength. That moment at Windsor was deliberate, a clear line, drawn in public, for the whole family to see. Camilla, though, has a choice to make. Stay silent and risk looking weak. Or speak and risk saying the wrong thing. Insiders say a carefully managed interview is being discussed. Something soft, controlled. But even that carries risk. One wrong sentence could freeze her image in place. Behind the scenes, lines are quietly forming. Prince Edward and Sophie are reportedly siding with Anne. William hasn't spoken, but his actions speak volumes. Walking with Anne, not Camilla, after the event. His silence? Louder than any quote. Even King Charles is reportedly recalibrating. He may support Camilla publicly, but he knows Anne's words carry weight. Behind closed doors, aides are said to be reviewing upcoming appearances, possibly scaling back Camilla's spotlight. And outside, the public is still watching, replaying clips, sharing theories, wondering if this moment marked a real shift in royal power. The palace will try to move forward, but this moment isn't fading. Not yet. Because now, the world has seen the crack, not just between palace and people, but between the royals themselves. And all it might take to blow it open is one more move. This wasn't just a clash, it was a statement. Anne's confrontation has shifted the tone inside the palace, and now Camilla's next move could define her reign. With tensions rising and royal lines hardening, one thing is clear. The silence that followed wasn't the end. It was just the beginning.